Jeremiah 24, Parable of the Basket of Figs. Adonai showed me all of a sudden there were 2 baskets of figs set before the temple of Adonai. It was after King Nebuchadrezzar of Babylon had taken away into exile Jeconiah, king of Jehoiakim of Judah, and the princes of Judah, along with the craftsmen and smiths from Jerusalem, and had brought them to Babylon. One basket had very good figs, like the figs that are first ripe, but the other basket had very bad figs, which could not be eaten, and they were so bad. Then Adonai said to me, "What do you see, Jeremiah?" So I said, "Figs. The good figs are very good, but the bad figs are very bad, and cannot be eaten. They are so bad." Then the word of Adonai came to me, saying, "Thus says Adonai, God of Israel, the God of Israel, like these good figs, so will I regard the exiles of Judah, whom I have sent out of this place to the land of the Chaldeans, as good. I will set my eyes on them as good. I'll bring them back to this land, and I'll build them up and not pull them down. I'll plant them, not uproot them. Then I will give them a heart to know me, for I am Adonai, and they will be my people, and I will be their God. For they will return to me with their whole heart. Now as for the bad figs which cannot be eaten, they are so bad. Surely thus says Adonai, so I will give up Zedekiah the king of Judah, his princes, and the remnant of Jerusalem who remain in this land, as well as those dwelling in the land of Egypt. I will even give them as a horror, as an evil thing, among all the kingdoms of the earth, as a disgrace and a proverb, a taunt and a curse, in all places where I drive them. I will also send the sword, famine, and pestilence among them, until they be consumed from off the land that I gave them into their fathers. Jeremiah 25, unheard voice of the prophets. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, which was the 1st year of Nebuchadrezzar, king of Babylon. Jeremiah the prophet spoke to all the people of Judah and to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, in the 13th year of Josiah, son of Ammon, king of Judah, until this day, these 23 years, the word of Adonai has come to me, so I have spoken to you, speaking early and often, but you have not listened. Moreover, Adonai has sent to you all his servants, the prophets, sending them early and often, but you have not listened or inclined your ear to hear, saying, Turn now everyone from his evil way and from the evil of your deeds, and dwell in the land that Adonai has given you to you and to your fathers forever and ever. Do not go after other gods to serve them, to worship them. Do not provoke me with the work of your hands, so that I would do you no harm. Yet you have not listened to me, declares Adonai, so you are provoking me with the work of your hands to your own hurt. Therefore, thus says Adonai Zavat, since you have not heard my words, I will soon send for and bring all the families of the north. It is a declaration of Adonai. And I will send for King Nebuchadrezzar of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land and against its inhabitants, and against all these nations around about, and I will utterly destroy them and make them a horror and a hissing and enduring desolation. Moreover, I will silence them among silence them among the voice of joy and the voice of gladness and the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the sound of millstones and the light of the lamp. 70 years of desolation. So this whole land will be a desolate ruin, and these nations will serve the king of Babylon for 70 years. Then it will come to pass, when 70 years are completed, that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, declares Adonai, the land of the Chaldeans, for their iniquity, and I will make it ruins forever. I will bring on that land all my words which I pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book which Jeremiah has prophesied against all nations. For many nations and great kings will make slaves of them also. So I will repay them according to their deeds and according to the work of their own hands. Cup of fury and reeling. For thus says Adonai, the God of Israel, to me, take this cup of the wine of fury from my hand, and make all the nations to whom I am sending you to drink it. They will drink and reel to and fro, and be like madmen, because of the sword that I will send among them. Then I took up the cup from Adonai's hand, and made all the nations drink to whom Adonai had sent me. Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, with its kings and its princes, to make them an appalling horror and a hissing, a cursing as is this day. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, with his servants, his princes, and all of his people, and all the mingled people, all the kings of the land of Uz, all the kings of the land of the Philistines, Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, and the remnant of Ashdod, Edom, Moab, and Ammon's children, all the kings of Tyre, all the kings of Zidon, all the kings of the coastland across the sea, Dedan, Tema, Buz, all who shave the corners, all the kings of Arabia, and all the kings of the mixed people dwelling in the wilderness, all the kings of Zimri, all the kings of Elam, and all the kings of Media, all the kings of the north, either far or close to another, and all the kingdoms of the world which are on the face of the earth. And the king of Sheshach will drink after them, and you will say to them, Thus says Adonai Zavat, the God of Israel, drink, be drunk, and vomit, fall down, and rise no more, because of the sword that I will send among you. And if they refuse to take the cup at your hand to drink, then here is what you will say to them. Thus says Adonai Zavat, you will surely drink. See, I am beginning to bring ye evil on the city where my name is called, and you should go completely unpunished. You will not go unpunished, for I am summoning a sword against all the inhabitants of the earth. It is a declaration of Adonai Zavat. Therefore you are to prophesy against them all these words, and say to them, Adonai is roaring from on high, giving voice from his holy dwelling. He roars mightily over his sheepfold. He shouts like those who tread grapes against all who dwell on the earth. A noise has come to the end of the earth, for Adonai has a dispute with the nations. He is passing judgment on all flesh. As for the wicked, he has given them over to the sword. It is a declaration of Adonai. Thus says Adonai Zavat, evil will soon go forth from nation to nation. A great storm is being stirred up from the uttermost parts of the earth. Those slain by Adonai on that day will be from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. They will not be lamented, gathered, or buried. They will be dung on the surface of the ground. Wail, you shepherds, and cry. Wallow in the dust, you leaders of the flock. For the days of your slaughter and your dispersions are full. You will fall like a precious vase, for the shepherds will have no way to flee, nor the leaders of the flock to escape. Hark, the outcry of the shepherds, the wailing of the leaders of the flock. For Adonai is ravaging their pasture. The peace of the pasture is stifled because of the fierce anger of Adonai. He has left his lair like a lion, for the land has become a waste because of the fury of the oppressor and because of his fierce anger. Jeremiah chapter 26, surviving a death sentence. In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, the sword came from Adonai, saying, Thus says Adonai, stand in the court of Adonai's house and speak to all the cities of Judah that come to worship at Adonai's house. All the words that I command you to speak to them, do not omit a word. Perhaps they will listen and they turn man from his evil way, so I may relent of the calamity which I am planning to do to them because of the evil of their deeds. Then you will say to them, Thus says Adonai, if you will not listen to me by walking in my Torah which I have set before you, and by listening to the words of my servants the prophets, whom I have been sending to you early and often, but you have not listened, then I will make this house like a Shiloh, and will make this city cursed to all the nations of the earth. So the Kohanim, the prophets, and all the people heard Jehoiakim speaking these words in the house of Adonai. And when Jeremiah finished speaking all that Adonai had commanded him to speak to all the people, the Kohanim and the prophets and all the people laid on hold on him, saying, You will surely die. Why have you prophesied in the name of Adonai, saying, This house will be like Shiloh, and this city will be an uninhabited ruin? Then all the people gathered against Jeremiah in the house of Adonai. When the princes of Judah heard these things, they came up from the king's palace to the house of Adonai and sat in the entrance of the new gate of Adonai's house. The Kohanim and the prophets spoke to the princes and to all the people, saying, A death sentence for this man, for he has prophesied against the city, as you have heard with your ears. Then Jeremiah spoke to all the princes and to all the people, saying, Adonai sent me to prophesy all the words that you have heard against this house and against this city. So now mend your ways and your deeds, and obey the voice of Adonai your God, so Adonai will relent of the calamity that he has pronounced against you. But as for me, here I am in your hand. Do with me as is good and right in your eyes. Only know for certain that if you put me to death, you will bring innocent blood on yourselves, on this city and on its inhabitants. For in truth, Adonai has sent me to you to speak all these words in your ears. Then said the princes and all the people to the Kohanim and to the prophets, No death sentence for this man, for he has spoken to us in the name of Adonai our God. Then some of the elders of the land rose up and addressed all the assembly of the people, saying, Micah, the Moreshite, prophesied in the days of Hezekiah king of Judah, and he spoke to all the people of Judah, saying, Thus says Adonai Zavat, Zion will be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem will become ruins, and the mountain of the house as the high places of a forest. Did King Hezekiah of Judah and all Judah put him to death? Didn't he fear Adonai and plead for the favor of Adonai? And then Adonai relented of the calamity that he had pronounced against them, so we may be committing great evil against our own souls. There was a great man who had prophesied in the name of a student, Uriah son of Shemaiah, of Kiriath Jearim. He prophesied against the city and against this land, words like all those of Jeremiah. When King Jehoiakim, with all his mighty men and all the princes, heard the words, the king sought to put him to death. But when Uriah heard it, he was afraid and fled and went to Egypt. So King Jehoiakim sent men to Egypt, Elnathan son of Achbor and some others with him, and they brought Uriah back from Egypt and led him to King Jehoiakim, who slew him with the sword and threw his corpse into the burial place of the common people. Nevertheless, the land of Ahiakim, son of Shaphan, was the Jeremiah, so that they did not give him into the hand of the people to put him to death. As Jeremiah chapter 27, Jeremiah wears a yoke. In the beginning of the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, came this sword to Jeremiah from Adonai, saying, Thus says Adonai to me, Make straps and yoke bars and put them on your neck. Then send such to the king of Edom, to the king of Moab, to the king of Ammon's children, to the king of Tyre, and to the king of Zidon, by the hand of the messengers that come to Jerusalem, to King Zedekiah of Judah. Charge them to their masters, saying, Thus says Adonai Zavat, the God of Israel, thus will you say to your masters, I have made the earth, mankind, and beasts which are on the face of the earth, by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and I give it to whom seems right to me. So now I have given all these lands into the hand of King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, my servant. I have given the beasts of the field to serve him. All the nations will serve him, and his son and his grandson, until the time of his own land comes, and the many nations and great kings will make him their slave. Now it will be that the nation of the kingdom which will not serve the same king, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, and will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation I will punish with the sword, with famine, and with pestilence, declares Adonai, until I have destroyed it by his hand. But as for you, do not listen to your prophets, your diviners, your dreamers, your soothsayers, your sorcerers who speak to you, or your sorcerers who speak to you, saying, You will not serve the king of Babylon, for they prophesy a lie to you in order to remove you far from your land, so that I would drive you out and you would perish. But the nation that will bring their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon and serve him, that nation I will not remain in this land, and they will till it and dwell in it. It is a declaration of Adonai. Then I spoke to King Zedekiah of Judah with all these same words, saying, Put your necks under the yoke of the king of Babylon, serve him and his people, and live. Why should you die, you and your people, by the sword, by famine, or by pestilence, as Adonai has spoken against the nation that will not serve the king of Babylon? Do not speak to the words of the prophets who speak to you, saying, You will not serve the king of Babylon, for they prophesy a lie to you. For I have not sent them, says Adonai, and they prophesy falsely in my name, with the result that I will drive you out, and that you will perish, you and the prophets that prophesy to you. Then I spoke to the Kohanim and to all these people, saying, Thus says Adonai, Do not listen to the words of your prophets who prophesy to you, saying, See, the vessels of Adonai's house will now shortly be brought back from Babylon, for they prophesy a lie to you. Do not listen to them. Serve the king of Babylon and live. Why should this city become a ruin? But if they are prophets, and if the word of Adonai is with them, let them now make intercession to Adonai Zavat, that the vessels that are left in the house of Adonai, in the place of the palace of the king of Judah and in Jerusalem, would not go to Babylon. For thus says Adonai Zavat, concerning the pillars, the seas, the bases, and the rest of the vessels that remain in the city, which King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon has not taken, whom he carried away captive, Jeconiah, son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, from Jerusalem to Babylon, along with all the nobles of Judah and Jerusalem. Thus says Adonai Zavat, the God of Israel, concerning the vessels that remain in the house of Adonai, in the house of the king of Judah, and at Jerusalem. They will be brought to Babylon, and there they will be until the day that I take note of them. It is a declaration of Adonai, and bring them up and restore them to this place. Jeremiah chapter 28, a false prophecy too soon. Now it was the same year, in the beginning of the reign of Zedekiah king of Judah, in the 4th year, in the 5th month, that Hananiah son of Azur, the prophet from Gibeon, spoke to me in the house of Adonai, in the presence of the Kohanim and of all the people, saying, Thus says Adonai Zavat, the God of Israel, saying, I have broken the yoke of the king of Babylon. Within 2 full years I will bring back to this place all the vessels of Adonai's house that Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon took away from this place and brought to Babylon. I will also bring Jeconiah son of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, back to this place, and with all the captives of Judah that went to Babylon. It is a declaration of Adonai, for I will break the yoke of the king of Babylon. And the prophet Jeremiah spoke to the prophet Hananiah in the presence of the Kohanim and in the presence of all the people that stood in Adonai's house. So the prophet Jeremiah said, Amen. May Adonai do so. May Adonai fill your words that you have prophesied, bringing back the vessels of Adonai's house and all those who are taken away captive from Babylon to this place. Yet hear now the word that I am speaking in your ears, in the ears of all the people. The prophets who have been before me and before you of ancient times prophesied against many countries and against great kingdoms of war, catastrophe, and plague. The prophet who prophesies shalom, when the words of the prophet has come to pass, then will the prophet be known as the one that Adonai has truly sent. Then Hananiah the prophet took the yoke bar from the prophet of Jeremiah's neck and broke it. Hananiah proclaimed in the presence of all the people, saying, Thus says Adonai, just so I will break the yoke of the king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon from off the neck of all the nations within 2 full years. So the prophet Jeremiah went his way. Then the word of Adonai came to Jeremiah. After that, Hananiah the prophet had broken the yoke bar from the neck of the prophet of Jeremiah, saying, Go tell Hananiah, saying, Thus says Adonai, you have broken the yoke bars of wood, but in its place you will make yoke bars of iron. For thus says Adonai Zavat, the God of Israel, I have put on a yoke of iron on the neck of all these nations, so that they may serve King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. They will serve him, and I have also given him the beasts of the field. Then said the prophet Jeremiah to the prophet Hananiah, Hear now, Hananiah, Adonai has not sent you. Yet you have caused this people to trust in a lie. Therefore, thus says Adonai, I am about to send you away from off the face of the earth. This year you will die, since you have spoken apostasy against Adonai. So Hanani the prophet died the same year in the 7th month.